On Friday, February the 5th, 2016, Jason Caldwell and his wife Shauna gave their two 17-year-old twin boys a hug and a kiss before the boys went out that evening. Little did they know that that would be the last time they would see their boys alive. Hours later, Evan and Jordan lost their lives in a tragic accident at Canada Olympic Park in the city of Calgary. Well, Jason joins me today to share that story. Jason, welcome to 100 Huntley Street.
Thank you.
Jason, tell us a bit about Evan and Jordan.
They were superstars. Evan and Jordan were both leaders in their high schools, and they excelled tremendously in their academics, but their key trademark was the kindness that they were known for. Evan and Jordan both were several people's first friends. They were known as always being the one that would answer the phone and talk to their friends through different circumstances in their lives, help them with their homework. Jordan was the student council president at his high school. Evan was the voice of the high school, doing the morning announcements every morning. They lived out their faith, and they had a real eye for the underdog. Real volunteers. They loved to volunteer. In fact, both of them were volunteering with organizations that were welcoming the new Syrian refugees to Canada. Evan played the guitar at the Refugee Reception Center here in Calgary, and Jordan spent a lot of his spare time driving refugees to medical appointments and helping with translation for refugees that didn't know English, because he was studying some second languages.
Now, tremendous influence obviously in the community, but you've also mentioned that one of the greatest contributions you made to their lives was taking them to church. Why?
Well, church was and has been always the foundation of our family. We were really blessed to attend a great Bible teaching church, and just from the earliest age, having them plugged in and letting that become a constant source of truth, keeping us centered on God's wisdom for living and His truth for eternity in terms of knowing our relationship. When I, on the morning of February 6th, when I got called to the hospital, we spent several uncertain minutes there, wondering amongst the other families, you know, what had happened and who was involved, and it was moments later that I was told that I needed to come with the police, and we went down to the medical examiner's office, and I fell to my knees between the lifeless bodies of my sons. But in that moment, I just said, God, I'm so glad I know where they are, because there was never a moment of doubt in my mind that Jordan and Evan had already spent their first 8 hours in eternity.
You know, can you explain, some people may not have read news reports or seen the news, but can you just briefly explain what happened to Evan and Jordan? On
the night of February 5th, the boys were at their church youth group event, and it was an event called Worship Generation, and there's dozens of high school students there, and they had had a great night in the Word and worship and fellowship, and as things normally go in church youth groups, there's a lot of excitement and zest for life, and a large group of them ended up at a restaurant nearby, and an idea was put forth to grab some toboggans and go to the top of the Olympic bobsled track. Some of the boys had actually gone down the track in the past, and Evan and Jordan actually had worked at Canada Olympic Park and were familiar with the track, had been down legitimately. as part of their jobs, and so anyways, there were some young men that were really sponsoring the idea and saying we should do this, and so anyhow, around 1 o'clock in the morning, they ended up at the top of that track, and the first sled went down, and the second sled was waiting for a text message, an all clear message, once the boys reached the bottom. But that message never came. The enthusiasm and adrenaline just got the best of the next two groups, and they ended up also going down. What they didn't realize is that just around that first bend, there's an intersection between the luge track and the bobsled track that is, 99 days out of 100 always configured in the bobsled configuration. But that earlier that day, the track had been reconfigured, and so all of those boys went down, and they met a dead end.
Yeah. And of all the boys, just your two sons, Evan and Jordan.
That's right.
Lost their
That's
lives.
right.
You've said that this tragedy in your family tested the very foundation of Jesus. How so?
Well, I think death is ultimately the reality check, the ultimate reality check for all of us, in that we realize that you can have all the different kinds of theories and build your life on different philosophies about eternity and what happens after you die, and you might even put that off and choose not to think about it. But when you're at the bedside of death, suddenly there's a great reckoning of what do I believe, and how am I going to cope with this moment, and not having an assurance of eternity, not knowing that Evan and Jordan are in heaven. If I didn't know that, if there was any uncertainty about that, I just can't imagine how we would carry on. And so,
and out of these moments and times of ashes, the ashes of pain and grief, from that moment, God has opened some incredible doors through this. And just one of them is exciting because something's taking place in the city of Calgary coming up. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. Well, we have always had a real focus, even before the boys passed away, on evangelism and how we can stir up faith in the church and look for opportunities to gain ground and share the hope of Jesus Christ with people. And anyhow, God has opened a door for us to host an event downtown Calgary on Canada Day, and we've called that event Hope 150. And Hope 150 will be a Christian Canada Day celebration that shares the hope of Jesus. In a public park, a large public park. We can host about 15,000 people there, and it'll share that through music and through testimonies of Christian hope all throughout the day.